The black businesswoman was humiliated by a failure at work. Her former colleague helps her, and as they grow closer, a surprising passion blossoms. The Apex Marketing Conference Hall was aglow with the anticipation of dozens of anxious executives. Chloe Bennett, a 28-year-old advertising executive, adjusted her navy blue blazer one last time before taking to the stage. Her green eyes sparkled with a mixture of confidence and nervousness as she walked to the center, the sound of her heels echoing through the quiet room. "Good morning, everyone," Chloe began, her voice firm and full of enthusiasm. "Today, I'm here to introduce you to the campaign that will revolutionize the sustainable cosmetics market." As she spoke, the lights in the hall dimmed and the screen behind her came to life. Stunning images of natural landscapes mingled with the smiling faces of models wearing makeup. Chloe felt her heart race as she saw the impressed looks on the faces of the audience. "Our new EcoGlow range isn't just about beauty," she continued, gesturing passionately. "It's about responsibility, about taking care of our planet while taking care of ourselves." Suddenly, the presentation stopped. Chloe felt a drop of cold sweat trickle down her back, but she kept a smile on her face. "Just a moment, please," she said, trying to keep her composure as the technician rushed to fix the problem. When the screen came back to life, it wasn't the carefully selected images from the campaign that appeared. Instead, a video started playing. Chloe recognized it immediately. It was herself, visibly drunk at a party, knocking over drinks and tripping over her own feet. The silence in the room was broken by muffled giggles that soon turned into open laughter. Chloe stood paralyzed, her face losing all color. She tried to speak, but the words got stuck in her throat. I, she stammered, but the damage had already been done. The executives whispered among themselves, some pointing, others shaking their heads in disapproval. Chloe felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Her legs trembling, she climbed down from the stage, ignoring the looks of pity and the muffled laughter. She grabbed her bag and ran out of the hall, tears beginning to blur her vision. Hours later, Chloe was curled up on her sofa. The apartment plunged into dusk. Her phone kept vibrating with notifications. With trembling fingers, she unlocked the screen and began to read the comments on social media. What a joke of a campaign. Who's going to trust a brand represented by someone like that? Eco-friendly? More like party-friendly, isn't it? That's the face of sustainability? Pathetic. Each comment was like a stab. Chloe felt hot tears running down her cheeks, staining the makeup she had so carefully applied in the morning. The phone vibrated again, this time with a call from her boss. She hesitated for a moment before turning it down, unable to face any more humiliation. Getting up with difficulty, Chloe walked to the window of her apartment. Outside, the city pulsed with life, indifferent to her personal drama. Neon lights flashed, cars honked, people hurried along the sidewalks. Everything seemed so normal, so far removed from the storm roaring inside her. Leaning her forehead against the cold glass, Chloe closed her eyes and let out a deep sigh. How had it come to this? Just a few hours ago, she was on top of the world, ready to present her life's work. Now she felt smaller than a grain of sand. Her thoughts wandered back to the beginning of her career, the enthusiasm of a young graduate, full of ideas and dreams, the sleepless nights working on projects, the thrill of seeing her creations come to life. And now, it all seemed to have been reduced to an embarrassing few-second video. The phone vibrated again. This time it was a message from her mother. "Darling, I'm watching the news. Please call me." Chloe felt a lump in her throat. Even her family was involved in this mess now. The shame she felt was mixed with a growing anger. Anger at herself for being so careless. Anger at whoever had leaked the video. Anger at the world that seemed so quick to judge and so slow to forgive. Returning to the sofa, Chloe grabbed a blanket and wrapped herself in it. as if she could hide from the world. Her eyes stung from crying and her head throbbed. She knew she had to do something, face the situation somehow, but at that moment, all she wanted to do was disappear. With an abrupt gesture, she hung up the phone. The sudden silence was both a relief and torture. Without the constant notifications, Chloe was forced to face her own thoughts, which were no less cruel than the online comments. As the night wore on, Chloe remained motionless, her eyes fixed on a distant point. The city outside continued its frenetic dance of lights and sounds, but inside the apartment, time seemed to have stopped. A decision began to form in her foggy mind. She needed to get away, to reconnect with herself away from critical eyes and crushing expectations. Perhaps, away from it all, she could find a way to rebuild not only her career, but her own identity. With that thought, Chloe finally allowed herself to close her eyes, exhausted. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, she gave herself over to a restless sleep, hoping that somehow it was all just a bad dream from which she would soon wake up. The San Francisco Convention Center was buzzing with the energy of thousands of technology enthusiasts. Colorful banners announced Tech Vision 2024, the biggest innovation conference of the year. Among the crowd, Ethan Reeves, a 32-year-old entrepreneur, navigated the crowded aisles, his brown eyes shining with interest at each new demonstration. Ethan adjusted his black-framed glasses, pausing to watch a presentation on artificial intelligence. His dark brown hair, slightly messy, gave him an unpretentious air that contrasted with his well-cut suit. While he was making notes on his tablet, something, or someone, in the corner of his vision caught his eye. About 20 meters away, a woman with blonde hair tied up in a messy bun was staring distractedly at a stand. Ethan frowned, a feeling of recognition hitting him. He took a few steps towards her, his eyes widening in surprise when he finally recognized her. "Chloe," he muttered to himself, almost in disbelief. It was Chloe Bennett, his old college classmate, and, for a brief period, something more than that. Ethan hesitated, memories from years ago flooding his mind. The sparkle in her eyes, the shared laughs, the ambitious dreams discussed in crowded coffee shops late into the night. But there was something different about her now. Her shoulders were slumped, and even from a distance, Ethan could sense an aura of defeat that seemed to envelop her. He vaguely remembered seeing something about her on the news recently, but couldn't recall the details. Ethan took a deep breath, gathering his courage. Before he could think too much, his feet were already carrying him towards her. "Chloe," he called softly as he approached. She turned, her green eyes widening in recognition and, for an instant, something akin to panic. "Ethan?" Chloe replied, her voice a mixture of surprise and apprehension. What are you doing here?" Ethan smiled gently, trying to ease the palpable tension. "I'm presenting a panel on sustainable startups tomorrow. What about you? I didn't expect to meet you at a tech conference." Chloe looked away, fiddling nervously with the strap of her bag. "I'm just having a look around. You know, always good to keep up to date." The silence that followed was laden with unspoken words and unasked questions. Ethan could sense that something was wrong, but he didn't know how to broach the subject. "Look," he began hesitantly, "I know it's been a long time, but how about we grab a coffee? There's a great coffee shop nearby. We can catch up." Chloe seemed to consider the offer for a moment, her face a mask of indecision. Finally, she nodded slightly. "All right, a coffee wouldn't hurt." Minutes later, they were sitting at a corner table in the cafe. The aroma of freshly ground beans filled the air, and the buzz of conversation around them created a cozy atmosphere. Ethan watched Chloe over his coffee cup, noticing how she avoided direct eye contact. "So," Ethan began, trying to break the ice, I heard you were doing an amazing job at Apex Marketing. They're lucky to have someone with your talent." Chloe visibly cringed when she heard the name of the company, her fingers gripping the cup tightly. "Yeah, well, things change," she replied evasively. Ethan frowned, feeling that he had touched a sensitive spot. "Chloe, is everything all right? You seem different." She finally looked up at him, her eyes shining with restrained tears. "You really don't know, do you? Haven't you seen the news, the memes, all the humiliation?" The realization hit Ethan like a bolt of lightning. The headlines he'd seen at a glance, the comments he'd heard, everything fell into place. "Oh, Chloe," he said softly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't." "You don't have to feel sorry for me," she interrupted, her voice laced with bitterness. "I've had enough of that." Ethan leaned forward, his eyes fixed on hers. "It's not pity, Chloe. It's concern. Look, I've always admired your work, your creativity. What happened doesn't define who you are." Chloe laughed humorlessly. "Tell that to social media, or to my former clients, or my ex-boss." "And since when does Chloe Bennett care what other people think?" Ethan asked, a slight smile on his lips. "The Chloe I knew in college would face that head-on." For a moment, a glimmer of the old fire shone in Chloe's eyes, but it soon faded, replaced by an expression of weariness. Things were simpler back then. Now I don't even know where to start. Ethan hesitated for a moment before speaking. "What if I told you I could help you? My startup is working on a project that could really benefit from someone with your marketing experience." Chloe stared at him, suspicion evident in her gaze. "Why? Why would you help me after all this time?" "Because I believe in second chances," Ethan replied simply, "and because I know what you're capable of. What do you say? Do you want to hear more about the project?" The tension in the air was palpable as Chloe considered the offer. Ethan could see the conflicting emotions on her face: fear, hope, doubt, determination. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she nodded slowly. "All right," Chloe said, her voice almost a whisper. "Tell me more." As Ethan began to explain his project, a small smile formed on Chloe's lips. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. And at that moment, something changed between them. A spark of possibility, a silent promise of a new beginning. The afternoon progressed and the cafe gradually emptied, but Ethan and Chloe remained, immersed in a conversation that flowed more and more naturally. The long empty coffee cups were forgotten on the table, silent witnesses to a reunion that could change the course of two lives. When they finally said goodbye, hours later, the air between them was filled with anticipation. Chloe, although still visibly wary, had a renewed sparkle in her eyes. Ethan, for his part, felt a mixture of excitement and responsibility. "So, I'll see you tomorrow at the office?" Ethan asked, a hopeful smile on his face. Chloe hesitated for a moment before answering. "Yes," she finally said, a small smile forming on her lips. "See you tomorrow." As they walked in opposite directions, they both felt that something significant had changed. For Chloe, it was a faint light at the end of a long tunnel of darkness. For Ethan, it was the thrill of a new challenge and the chance to help someone he had always believed in. The sun was setting over San Francisco, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A new chapter was about to begin, full of promise, challenges, and perhaps a chance at redemption. The office of Ethan's startup, Ecotech Solutions, pulsed with vibrant energy on that sunny San Francisco morning. Chloe hesitated for a moment before entering, nervously adjusting the strap of her handbag. The space was a mix of modern and cozy, with glass walls covered in colorful Post-its and green plants in every corner. Ethan welcomed her with a warm smile, guiding her into a meeting room. "Welcome to Ecotech, Chloe. Ready to take the plunge?" Chloe nodded. a mixture of anxiety and excitement in her eyes. More than ready. I can't wait to hear more about the project. The meeting room was dominated by a huge whiteboard that took up an entire wall. Ethan grabbed a marker and started sketching ideas quickly. So, our goal is to create a campaign for our new sustainability app, Ethan explained, his enthusiasm infectious. We want people not only to reduce their environmental impact, but to feel empowered in doing so. Chloe watched intently, her brain already buzzing with ideas. And how exactly does the app work? It tracks the user's daily choices, energy consumption, shopping habits, transportation, and offers personalized suggestions for reducing the carbon footprint, Ethan continued. But we want it to be more than just numbers. We want to create a community. Chloe stood up, picking up another marker. What if we focused on the idea that every little action matters? She started sketching on the board next to Ethan's drawings. We can show how those individual choices add up to create a bigger impact. Ethan smiled, watching Chloe in her element. Exactly. That's the energy we were looking for. The hours flew by as they discussed ideas, scribbled on the board, and occasionally fell into moments of shared laughter. Chloe's initial tension gradually dissipated, replaced by an enthusiasm she hadn't felt for weeks. What if we used real user stories? Chloe suggested, her eyes shining with inspiration. We could create a series of short videos, showing how ordinary people are making a difference with the help of the app. Ethan clapped his hands, excited. Brilliant! That would give the campaign a personal and relatable touch. As they worked, Chloe couldn't help noticing how easy it was to collaborate with Ethan. Their ideas complemented each other naturally, and there was a mutual respect that made the creative process fluid and enjoyable. However, it wasn't all flowers in the Ecotech office. During a lunch break, Ethan received a phone call that made him visibly tense. Chloe watched him from afar, noticing how he ran his hand through his hair repeatedly, a habit she remembered from her college days. When Ethan returned, Chloe couldn't contain her curiosity. Is everything all right? You look worried. Ethan hesitated for a moment before answering. It's complicated. We're facing some challenges with investors. They're pushing for faster results, and not everyone believes in the potential of our app. Chloe felt a twinge of empathy. She knew the pressure of the corporate world well. Hey, if there's anyone who can convince them, it's you. Your passion for this project is contagious. Ethan smiled gratefully. Thanks, Chloe. It means a lot to hear that from you. Returning to work, they dove headfirst into creating a storyboard for the campaign videos. The energy between them was palpable, each idea feeding into the next. At the end of the afternoon, exhausted but satisfied, they leaned back in their chairs, admiring the board now covered in ideas and sketches. Wow, Chloe breathed, a genuine smile on her face. It's been a while since I've felt so alive like this. Ethan watched her with a mixture of admiration and something else, something he wasn't yet ready to name. You're amazing, Chloe. I knew you'd be perfect for this project. The moment was interrupted by the sound of Chloe's stomach rumbling, making them both laugh. How about we continue this dinner conversation? Ethan suggested. I know a great vegetarian restaurant nearby. Chloe hesitated for a moment, a shadow passing across her eyes. I don't know, Ethan. Maybe it's not such a good idea. Sensing her hesitation, Ethan quickly added, just as colleagues, of course, to celebrate today's progress. After a moment's consideration, Chloe nodded. All right, why not? The restaurant was cozy, with soft lights and a relaxing atmosphere. As they waited for their dishes, the conversation flowed naturally into more personal topics. So, Ethan began, playing with his napkin. How have you been coping with everything? Chloe sighed, her gaze momentarily distant. Honestly, it's been difficult. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking on eggs. waiting for the next disaster to strike. Ethan reached out, lightly touching hers on the table. "Hey, you're stronger than you think." "What happened?" "It was a moment. It doesn't define who you are." Chloe stared at him, a vulnerability in her eyes that she rarely showed. "Sometimes I'm afraid I'll never get back what I've lost. My trust, my reputation." "You will," Ethan stated with conviction, "one step at a time, and I'll be here to support you along the way." The moment was interrupted by the arrival of food, but something had changed between them, a deeper understanding, a strengthened connection. As they savored their meal, Chloe couldn't help thinking about how her life had changed in just 2 days, from feeling completely lost to finding a new purpose and perhaps an unexpected ally. At the end of the evening, as they said goodbye on the sidewalk of the restaurant, there was an unresolved energy between them. Ethan hesitated for a moment, as if he wanted to say something more. "Chloe, Yes?" she replied, her heart racing inexplicably. Ethan smiled, opting for safer ground. "I'm really glad you're on board with this project. We're going to do something amazing together." Chloe returned the smile, a mixture of relief and disappointment. "I am too, Ethan. Thank you for everything." As they walked in opposite directions, they both carried with them a sense of possibility. The future, which had seemed so uncertain only days ago, now shone with promise. Chloe looked up at the stars above San Francisco, feeling for the first time in weeks truly hopeful. Tomorrow would be a new day, full of challenges but also opportunities, and she was ready to face them, one step at a time. The San Francisco afternoon sun filtered through the windows of the Ecotech Solutions office, casting dancing shadows over the desks cluttered with papers and prototypes. Chloe was concentrating on her laptop, finalizing the last details of the storyboard for the app campaign, when an unusual buzz caught her attention. Looking up, she saw Ethan in a heated conversation with a man she didn't recognize. The stranger, wearing an impeccable suit and with an air of arrogance, was gesticulating emphatically while Ethan looked increasingly tense. Curious and a little worried, Chloe approached discreetly, picking up fragments of the conversation. "It can't go on like this, Ethan," the man said, his voice laced with disdain. "Investors are losing patience. We need concrete results, not vague promises and hippie ideals." Ethan took a deep breath, visibly trying to stay calm. "Mark, we've been over this. Our approach may be different, but it's innovative. Give us a few more weeks and—" "Weeks?" Mark interrupted with a dry laugh. "The market doesn't wait, Ethan, and frankly, your recent choices don't inspire much confidence." Mark's eyes turned to Chloe, who froze as she realized she had been noticed. A mischievous smile formed on her lips. "Speaking of which, I hear you've brought in a new collaborator," Mark continued, his tone making it clear what he thought of this decision. "Interesting choice, considering recent events. But I suppose everyone deserves a second chance, don't they? Even if it's a burden on the company." Chloe felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. All the insecurities she had managed to suppress over the past few days came to the surface at once. She took a step back, wanting to disappear. Ethan, sensing Chloe's discomfort, positioned himself between her and Mark. "That's enough, Mark," he said, his voice firm. "The team's decisions are mine to make, and I have complete confidence in each member." Mark raised his hands in a gesture of false surrender. Of course. It's your company, for now." With one last dismissive glance, he turned and left, leaving a heavy silence behind. Ethan turned to Chloe, concern evident in his eyes. "Chloe, But she was already walking away, muttering something about needing fresh air. Chloe hurried out of the office, ignoring Ethan's calls. Minutes later, she found herself in a small park nearby, sitting on a bench, trying to control her breathing. Mark's words echoed in her mind, mixing with the doubts she had been struggling to overcome. "Chloe?" Ethan's soft voice brought her out of her thoughts. He was standing a few meters away, hesitating. "You shouldn't have come after me," Chloe said, her voice trembling. "You have a company to run." Ethan sat down next to her, keeping a respectful distance. "The company can wait. You're more important now." Chloe laughed humorlessly. "Am I? Or am I just a burden, like he said?" "No," Ethan replied firmly. "You're a talented professional and a crucial part of our team. Don't let Mark's words get to you. He doesn't know what he's talking about." "But what if he's right?" Chloe asked, finally looking at Ethan. Her eyes were watery. "What if I'm ruining your chances of success? Maybe I should leave." Ethan moved closer, taking Chloe's hands in his. "Don't even think about it. Look, I know things haven't been easy for you, but I believe in your talent. I always have." Chloe stared at him, looking for any sign of doubt in his eyes, but finding only sincerity. "Why? Why do you care so much?" There was a pause, a moment filled with unresolved tension. Ethan opened his mouth to reply, but was interrupted by the shrill ring of his cell phone. Frustrated, he answered the call. "Hello? Yes. I understand. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Hanging up the phone, Ethan turned to Chloe with an apologetic look on his face. "I need to get back. Emergency meeting with the investors." Chloe nodded, releasing her hands from his. "Go. Your company needs you." Ethan hesitated, clearly torn. "Are you going to be all right?" "I will," Chloe replied, forcing a smile. "I just need some time to think." Reluctantly, Ethan stood up. "Promise you won't make any rash decisions?" Chloe nodded again, watching as he walked away, casting worried glances over his shoulder. Alone in the park, Chloe found herself in a whirlwind of emotions. Part of her wanted to run away, go back to the safety of her apartment and forget all about it. But another part, a part that was growing every day, wanted to fight. She picked up her phone, hesitating for a moment before opening her social networks. The negative mentions and comments were still there, a constant reminder of her downfall. But for the first time in weeks, Chloe didn't feel completely defeated when she saw them. As the sun began to set, painting the San Francisco sky in shades of orange and pink, Chloe made a decision. She would not run away. Not this time. With trembling fingers, she typed a message to Ethan. "Thank you for believing in me. I'll be in the office early tomorrow. We have a campaign to launch." Pressing send, Chloe felt a weight come off her shoulders. The road ahead was still uncertain and full of obstacles, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face them. Rising from the bench, Chloe took one last look at the sunset before turning towards the office. There was work to be done, and she was determined to prove her worth, not just to Mark or the investors, but to herself. As she walked, Chloe reflected on Ethan's unspoken words, on the look in his eyes when he defended her. There was something there, something she wasn't yet ready to name or explore. But it was something that gave strength to her steps and hope to her heart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Chloe Bennett was ready to face them, one step at a time, with renewed determination, and perhaps an unexpected ally by her side. The Ecotech Solutions office was buzzing with an electric energy that morning. Chloe arrived early, determined to throw herself into her work and prove herself. She found Ethan already hunched over a pile of documents, dark circles evident under his eyes. "Rough night?" Chloe asked, placing an extra cup of coffee she had brought him on his desk. Ethan looked up, a tired but genuine smile lighting up his face. "You have no idea, but seeing you here already makes my day considerably better." Chloe felt a warmth creep up her neck, but kept her composure. "Well, prepare to get even better. I have some ideas I want to share." With renewed enthusiasm, Chloe began to present her vision for the campaign. Her eyes sparkled as she described a series of short videos, each highlighting how small changes in everyday life could have a big environmental impact. "And here's the icing on the cake," Chloe said, revealing her main concept. "We're going to create a viral challenge on social media. People share their own stories of change using our hashtag, and the best ones get featured on the app." Ethan stared, clearly impressed. "Chloe, that's brilliant. It's exactly the kind of engagement we need." The team gathered around, electrified by Chloe's presentation. Ideas flew around the room, each member contributing their expertise. At the center of it all, Chloe felt alive again, leading the discussion with a confidence that seemed lost weeks ago. The hours flew by, and before they knew it, the sun was setting. Most of the team had already left, leaving Chloe and Ethan alone in the office, finalizing the last details. "I can't believe how far we've come today," Ethan commented, squirming in his chair. "You've really exceeded all expectations, Chloe." Chloe smiled, a mixture of pride and gratitude in her chest. "Thank you for giving me the chance to prove myself." A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the soft hum of computers. Ethan seemed to be gathering the courage to say something. "Chloe, he began hesitantly. "There's something I need to tell you." Chloe's heart raced. "What is it?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Remember when we met in college? I always admired you. Not just your talent, but your passion, your determination." Chloe felt a lump in her throat. "Ethan, let me finish, please," he continued. "When I saw you at that conference, so downcast, I realized that my feelings never really went away. I wanted to help you, yes, but I also wanted to be close to you again." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken emotions. Chloe processed Ethan's words, her heart conflicted. "I don't know what to say," she finally replied, her voice almost a whisper. "All of this, it's so complicated." Ethan nodded, understanding. "I know, and I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted to be honest about my feelings and my motivations." Chloe stood up, walking over to the window. The city sparkled outside, a sea of lights against the night sky. "Ethan, I feel something too, but I'm so scared. Afraid of getting hurt again, of hurting you, of ruining everything we're building here." Ethan joined her at the window, keeping a respectful distance. "I understand, and I'm not going to pressure you. What we have here, at Ecotech, is too important to risk." Chloe turned to him, unshed tears glistening in her eyes. "But what if I wanted to risk it? What if I was tired of being afraid?" The moment was interrupted by the shrill ring of Ethan's phone. He looked at the screen, his face paling. "It's Mark," he said, the tension evident in his voice. "I have to take this." Chloe nodded, taking a step back. "Sure, go ahead." As Ethan took the call, stepping away to talk, Chloe watched the city outside. Her thoughts were a whirlwind. She had spent weeks feeling lost, and now, when she had finally found a new purpose, her emotions threatened to complicate everything. Ethan's conversation on the phone sounded tense. Although she couldn't hear the exact words, Chloe could feel the growing concern in his voice. When he finally hung up, his face was grim. "Problems?" Chloe asked, worried. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Chloe recognized as a sign of stress. "Mark is pushing for a presentation to investors next week. He wants concrete results, figures, projections." "But we're still early in the development of the campaign," Chloe protested. "I know," Ethan sighed. "But if we don't impress at that meeting, we could lose all the funding." The weight of the situation fell on both of them. The intimate moment of minutes ago seemed distant now, overshadowed by the reality of the challenges they faced. "What are we going to do?" Chloe asked, her voice determined. Ethan looked at her, a mixture of admiration and gratitude in his eyes. "We're going to work. Hard work. We have a week to turn your brilliant ideas into a presentation that will impress even the most skeptical of investors." Chloe nodded, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins. "Then we'd better get started now." As they walked back to their desks, ready for a long night's work, Chloe couldn't help thinking about the interrupted conversation. There had been so much unsaid between them, so many emotions running high. But now, with the future of ecotech at stake, they needed to focus. The hours passed in a blur of ideas, spreadsheets, and mock-ups. Dawn found Chloe and Ethan still working side by side, united by a common purpose and feelings that, for the time being, would remain unexplored. When the sun finally began to rise, painting the San Francisco sky in shades of pink and gold, Chloe looked at Ethan, exhausted but determined. "We're going to make it," she said, more of a statement than a question. Ethan smiled, the tiredness in his eyes mixed with something deeper. "With you by my side, I have no doubt." And so, with the dawn of a new day, Chloe and Ethan faced not only the professional challenges that awaited them, but also the unspoken promise of a future together, whatever that might mean. The Ecotech Solutions office was buzzing. The crucial presentation to investors was just 2 days away, and the tension was palpable in the air. Chloe and Ethan had spent the entire week working tirelessly, refining every detail of the campaign and preparing a presentation that they hoped would save the startup's future. Chloe was making the final adjustments to the digital storyboard when her phone vibrated. It was a notification from a social network. Her heart froze when she saw the content. "Ethan," she called, her voice shaking. "I think we have a problem." Ethan approached quickly, leaning over Chloe's shoulder to look at the phone screen. Her eyes widened in shock. On the screen, a viral video was spreading like wildfire. It was a skillful but malicious montage, combining the infamous video of Chloe at the party with manipulated images of ecotech. The caption read, "Is this the face of sustainability? Ecotech hires walking disaster as chief strategist." "This can't be happening," Chloe muttered, feeling panic rise in her chest. "Not now." Ethan put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll deal with it, Chloe. Together." But the situation deteriorated quickly. In a matter of hours, the video went viral, generating a flood of negative comments and sensationalist headlines. Ecotech's social networks were flooded with messages from users questioning the company's integrity. Mark, Ethan's rival, wasted no time in capitalizing on the situation. He called an emergency meeting with investors, claiming that the association with Chloe was an unacceptable risk to the company's reputation. Chloe watched helplessly as everything she and Ethan had built seemed to crumble. Maybe I should leave," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I'm doing more harm than good." Ethan, who had been pacing back and forth, stopped abruptly. "Don't even think about it," he said, his voice firm. "I'm not going to let them take you away from this project, not after everything you've done." "But Ethan, look at this," Chloe argued, pointing at the headlines on her computer. "I'm ruining everything." Ethan knelt down beside her, holding her hands. "Chloe, listen. What's happening now? It's terrible, yes, but it doesn't define who you are or the value of your work. Remember what we created here. The passion you brought back to this project. That's real. That's what matters." Ethan's words touched Chloe deeply. She stared at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. "What can we do?" Ethan smiled, a plan already forming in his mind. "Let's use this to our advantage. You've always said that the best campaigns are those that tell authentic stories, right? Well, what story is more authentic than yours?" Chloe frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "Let's tell your story, Chloe. Not the distorted version that's going around, but the real one. About falling and getting up. about second chances and redemption. Isn't that exactly what our sustainability campaign is about? About making better choices, one day at a time. As Ethan spoke, Chloe felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. Do you think it would work? I'm sure, Ethan replied, his enthusiasm growing. Let's turn this crisis into an opportunity to show exactly what ecotech stands for. Energized by this new direction, Chloe and Ethan plunged into work. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of frenetic activity. They rewrote the presentation, incorporating Chloe's story as a central case study. They produced a heartfelt video where Chloe spoke openly about her past mistakes and how the opportunity at ecotech helped her rediscover her purpose. The morning of the presentation came too quickly. Chloe was nervous, but determined. As they prepared to enter the meeting room, Ethan took her hand. No matter what happens in there, he said softly, I'm proud of you, of what we've built together. Chloe squeezed his hand back, feeling a wave of gratitude and something else, something she wasn't yet ready to name. Thank you, Ethan, for everything. The presentation was intense. Chloe spoke passionately about ecotech's mission, intertwining her own journey of redemption with the company's vision of creating a more sustainable world. Ethan complimented with solid data and promising projections. When Chloe's video was shown, there was a palpable silence in the room. She could feel the looks on the investors' faces, some skeptical, others intrigued. Mark, sitting at the back of the room, looked furious. At the end, one of the main investors stood up. I must admit, he began, that I came here today certain that I would withdraw my support for ecotech. But what I've seen, the authenticity, the courage to face mistakes head-on and turn them into something positive, that's exactly the kind of leadership the world needs right now. A murmur of agreement ran through the room. Other investors began to express their support, impressed by the honest and innovative approach. Chloe and Ethan exchanged looks of relief and joy. They had done it. Not only had they saved ecotech, but they had set a new standard of authenticity and resilience. As they left the meeting room, exhausted but elated, Ethan pulled Chloe into a tight hug. We did it, he whispered. Chloe allowed herself to relax in his arms, feeling for the first time in a long time that she was exactly where she should be. Yes, she replied softly. We did it. The future was still uncertain, with many challenges ahead. But at that moment, embraced in the corridor of ecotech, Chloe and Ethan knew that, together, they could face anything that came their way. The morning sun bathed San Francisco in golden light, as if the city itself were celebrating ecotech's success. Weeks had passed since the presentation to investors, and Chloe's campaign was finally ready to be launched to the public. In the office, the atmosphere was one of nervous anticipation. Chloe stood in front of her computer, the cursor hovering over the publish button that would send the campaign's first video to social media. Ready? Ethan asked softly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Chloe took a deep breath, remembering the whole journey that had brought her there. As ready as I can be, she replied with a strained smile. With a click, the video went live. The whole team anxiously watched the screens, monitoring initial reactions. The first few minutes were agonizing. Then, slowly, the comments began to roll in. Likes and shares increased by the second. Hashtags related to the campaign began to gain traction. It's working, exclaimed one of the team members, his voice a mixture of surprise and joy. Chloe could hardly believe it. She looked at Ethan, who was grinning from ear to ear. We really did it, she whispered, feeling a wave of emotion wash over her. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. The campaign went viral in a way that no one could have predicted. People from all over the world were sharing their own stories of change and sustainability, using the ecotech hashtag. In the middle of the afternoon, Chloe received an unexpected phone call. It was from a major news network, inviting her to a live interview that evening to talk about the campaign and her personal story. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to," Ethan said, worried about how Chloe would handle the exposure. But Chloe felt a determination she hadn't experienced for a long time. "No, I want to do it. It's time to face everything head on." Hours later, Chloe found herself backstage at a TV studio, nervous but resolute. Ethan was by her side, offering silent support. "You're going to rock," he said, shaking her hand briefly before she was called on stage. The studio lights were bright, and Chloe could feel the stares of millions of spectators. But when the interviewer started asking questions, Chloe was surprised by her own calmness. She spoke openly about her past mistakes, about the fall that almost destroyed her career, and about how she found the strength to get back on her feet. She shared Ecotech's vision and how sustainability became not just a work project, but a personal mission. "What would you say to someone going through a difficult time right now?" the interviewer asked. Chloe thought for a moment before answering. "I would say that mistakes don't define who we are. It's what we do after them that matters. Every day is a new opportunity to make better choices, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us." When the interview ended, Chloe was greeted with warm applause from the studio team. Her phone immediately exploded with messages of support from friends, family, and even strangers inspired by her story. Leaving the studio, she found Ethan waiting with a huge smile. "You looked amazing," he said, pulling her into a hug. Chloe allowed herself to melt into the embrace, feeling a rush of emotions, relief, pride, gratitude, and something else, something she could no longer deny. "Ethan," she said softly, pulling away to look into his eyes. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Ethan's eyes shone with emotion. "Chloe, But before he could continue, Chloe leaned in and kissed him. It was a soft kiss, full of promise and all the feelings they had both repressed for so long. When they broke apart, they were both smiling, a little breathlessly. "I think we have a lot to talk about," Ethan said, his smile radiant. "We do," Chloe agreed. "But first, how about we celebrate? I think we deserve it." They decided to go to a small park nearby, a quiet place away from the spotlight and the hustle and bustle of the day. Sitting on a bench watching the sun set over San Francisco Bay, Chloe and Ethan finally had a chance to process everything that had happened. "So, what happens now?" Chloe asked, her head resting on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan intertwined his fingers with hers. "Now, we continue the work we started. We make the world a little better, one day at a time. Together." Chloe smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced for a long time. "I like the sound of that." As the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Chloe reflected on her journey. From a viral fiasco that almost destroyed her career, to a new beginning full of purpose and love. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but now she felt equipped to face them. "You know," she said, looking at Ethan, "I think I finally understand what it really means to get back up after a fall." Ethan looked at her curiously. "And what is that?" "It's about turning our mistakes into lessons, our weaknesses into strength. It's about using our own story to inspire others." She paused, smiling. "And it's about finding people who believe in us, even when we don't believe in ourselves." Ethan pulled her closer, kissing her forehead softly. "I'm so proud of you, Chloe, and so happy that we're on this journey together." As the first stars began to dot the night sky, Chloe and Ethan remained in each other's arms, talking about the future, about their dreams, and about the endless possibilities that lay before them. The Ecotech campaign was just the beginning. Together they were ready to face any challenge, create positive change, and above all, keep growing, as individuals, as a couple, and as a force for good in the world. And so, under the starry San Francisco sky, a new story began. A story of redemption, of love, and of a bright future built on the lessons of the past. Did this narrative stir your emotions? Don't forget to express your approval with a like. Take advantage of the Super Thanks feature, available just below the video, to offer direct support to the channel and contribute to the production of more fascinating content. Subscribe and remember to activate the bell to stay up to date with all the latest updates. And attention, a new exciting story is already ready to be displayed on your screen. Your participation means a lot to me, and I hope to count on your presence soon. Thank you very much for dedicating your time to this video.